They had always thought Emily would follow the path laid out for her, the perfectly framed life of privilege, expectations neatly stacked like silverware. But that night when she brought Malik home, the air itself seemed to change. The storm outside rattled the windows in angry rhythms, a mirror to the tension that hung thick in the dining room. A door slammed, hard, echoing, and her father's voice cut like a whip. "You are no daughter of mine," he said, finality baked into every word. Emily's heart clenched, but her hand remained on Malik's sleeve. She had nothing but love and resolve in her pockets as she stepped into the cold night, leaving behind a house that had suddenly become foreign. The land her grandfather had tended, the one her parents had mocked for its stubborn soil and lowly trees, was now a secret waiting to turn the tide of their judgment. That soil carried more than memories, it carried a reckoning. Her mother's lips pressed into a thin line, her father's fork suspended mid-air. The chandelier overhead hummed a faint, electric warning. Cousins shifted uncomfortably, murmuring under their breath, and even the family dog seemed to sense the rupture. "You're throwing your life away," her mother said, finally breaking the silence. Emily's throat tightened, but she did not flinch. Malik sat straighter, calm but aware. "Sir," he said, voice steady, "I respect your home, your family. And I respect Emily." "Respect?" her mother scoffed, eyes narrowing. "We raised you better than charity." The words lingered, sticky as syrup, as Emily recalled summers spent on the lake with her father teaching her to steer the boat, his hands steady on the wheel, saying, "Trust your hands, Emily. Trust." She had trusted her heart, and it had led her here. "I love him," she said. Simple, but enough to shatter the polite veneer of civility that had filled the room for decades. A chair screeched against the floor, her aunt muttered something about embarrassment, and her father's final verdict landed like a hammer: choose. Outside, the winter air tore at their lungs, sharp and biting. Malik's old hatchback rattled as they drove through the slick streets, headlights reflecting on puddles. Inside the car, the scent of clean soap mingled with the faint tang of engine oil. Emily clutched her duffel and the leather-bound journal she had carried since childhood, the photo of her 10-year-old self perched on her father's shoulders tucked inside. They arrived at his small apartment. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. A dying basil plant leaned toward the window as if reaching for the moonlight. Emily kicked off her shoes and laughed, a single incredulous sound. They ate ramen on crates, steam curling between them, carrying warmth to hearts chilled by rejection. Outside, the city hummed. 2 teenagers passed, whispering, "Cute couple." Emily wrote one line in her journal before sleep: "Love is a doorway I just walked through." Morning came with the thin light of dawn spilling through threadbare curtains. Malik tied his boots, hunched against the chill. He kissed her temple. "Back late," he said. Emily nodded and tucked the blanket around his waist. Life was modest, each day a ledger of small sacrifices. Rice stretched with spices from the corner store, bus rides that carried both them and their dreams, bills paid in cautious increments. Emily cleaned offices at sunrise, the smell of lemon and floor polish clinging to her skin, and noticed the subtle stares, the whispers, "Isn't that the Warren girl?" Evenings were stolen moments on the fire escape. Malik recounted stories of his grandparents, seeds stored in coffee tins, hymns sung in rain. Emily asked about the farm, but he only said, "It's tired land. Dry, stubborn, but it raised me." Then came the news of his grandfather's passing. Silence fell over their small apartment as they received the call, Emily reaching for Malik's hand as he clenched it tight. 2 funerals in 3 days, the scent of wax and damp wood, old friends offering awkward embraces. Emily felt the weight of absence and inheritance, of roots intertwined with earth and family history. After the funerals, a box arrived at their door. Faded ribbon, yellowed papers, and a folded map marked with an X near the creek line. Malik almost smiled. "Granddad liked his legends," he whispered. The next Sunday they drove out to the farm. The house was smaller than Emily had imagined, paint peeling, porch sagging. The barn leaned slightly, chimes tangled in the breeze. They breathed in the smell of damp earth and apples, the quiet hum of life lingering in the corners. Light poured through the windows as they cleaned, one room at a time, music stitching the silence together. Emily wore his grandmother's apron, tiny violets stitched along the hem, and moved carefully through rooms heavy with memory. In the barn, they discovered jars of nails, rusted tools, and a sign faded to illegibility: "Please close gate." Outside, neighbors passed on 4-wheelers, gossip trailing like smoke. By nightfall, the mattress on the floor became their bed, the coyotes their lullaby. Emily wrote by flashlight, listing repairs like prayers. Pump, fences, patience. And then instinctively she touched her belly, startled by the small life growing within. Morning light led Emily to the creek, dew soaking her boots. She brushed leaves from the X on the map, finding only a flat stone and a rusted ring of bottle caps. She laughed, pocketing one for luck. They worked the land tirelessly, and slowly the farm began to respond. Then came the hollow sound beneath Malik's boot while fixing the pump. A box solid under the soil. They pried it open with careful hands, revealing waxed cloth and folded papers stamped with the logo of Fleming Mining Company. Leases, signatures, and a map of veins beneath the land. Malik read his grandfather's name in looping ink. The discovery became a sacred rhythm in their lives. Days of research, calls to old lawyers, dusty county records. A vein of gold stretched beneath the farm, abandoned during a century-old dispute. Ownership had quietly passed down, waiting for the right hands to claim it. Emily's nights were sleepless, the old walls humming with anticipation. Cautiously they began leasing survey equipment, testing soil and water, chasing glimmers in pans of silt. Small flecks of gold winked under the sunlight, hesitant but real. They registered Turner Mining Company, working from a borrowed office, folding tables and a laptop, their entire kingdom. Malik labored dawn to dusk. Emily managed accounts, paychecks, correspondence, the smell of ink and metal a constant companion. Months passed. Drills traced the earth's pulse. Gold dust caught in filters. The town whispered and gossiped, but now it was admiration rather than scorn. Malik bought new boots and laughed as he left the price tags dangling. They worked with reverence, respect for the land that had been their silent companion. One evening at the creek, Malik held a nugget of gold, shaking in his palm. "For them," he said, thinking of his grandparents. Emily leaned against his shoulder. "And for us," she whispered. Rain-sweet air, promise in the soil. By spring, the story had reached newspapers, anchors speaking with awe of the couple who had struck gold. Emily's maiden name appeared like a ghost she thought buried. Her parents arrived at the farm, unannounced, black sedan creeping down the dirt road. The same hands that once demanded compliance now folded awkwardly around mugs of coffee. Words were said, clumsy, tentative, but the warmth beneath them grew. Emily realized they had not come for recognition of her success but for peace, for connection, and perhaps, a chance to rebuild what pride had torn apart. Months later, Emily and Malik welcomed their child, a small, strong life named Eli. Her parents visited, humbled, bringing small gifts, learning again the rhythm of family. The farm flourished with new trees, laughter, and small triumphs. Emily knew the treasure beneath the soil was meaningless compared to the legacy above it. Love, forgiveness, and a future built on the courage to follow one's heart. Gold could shine, but love was incandescent. And in that stubborn, defiant light, Emily, Malik, and Eli thrived. Morning on the farm brought a quiet rhythm. Sunlight spilled over worn boards, dust motes drifting like tiny dancers in the air. Emily woke before Malik, listening to the soft creak of the old house settling. She traced the lines of the ceiling with her eyes, thinking about how much had changed and how little the world outside understood what love could build. Malik was already in the barn, wrench in hand, fixing the pump that carried water from the well. His movements were careful, deliberate, as if he knew the land itself was watching. Emily joined him with a mug of coffee, the steam fogging her glasses. He looked up, gave her a small, tired smile. "Morning," he said. "Morning," she replied, leaning against the doorframe. Her hand brushed against her belly, still warm from sleep. She wondered how the baby inside her would grow up knowing the story of the farm, the hidden gold, the struggle, and the triumph. Would it matter to them, or would they only know the love that built it? The day unfolded in layers of work and small victories. They patched the barn roof, cleared the creek line, and sorted old tools. Every movement seemed heavier than it should have been, not from fatigue, but because the weight of possibility pressed down on them. Emily carried boxes of nails and screws, Malik lifted timber, and they moved in tandem, wordless understanding passing between them like breath. By afternoon, the air smelled of damp earth and pine. Emily wandered toward the creek, following the path marked with the X on the old map. She knelt by the water, letting her fingers trace the smooth stones. A glimmer caught her eye, a small fleck of gold clinging to a pebble. She laughed softly, holding it up for Malik, who appeared behind her, wiping his hands on a rag. "It's just the start," he said, voice low, almost reverent. Emily nodded, slipping the pebble into her pocket. Every discovery, no matter how small, felt like a promise. Back at the house, they spread out the papers from the box, maps, old mining leases, hand-drawn diagrams. Emily marveled at the meticulous care Malik's grandfather had taken. This was more than gold, it was a legacy of patience, persistence, and quiet resilience. She thought of her own family, the dismissive words, the slammed doors, and felt a strange blend of anger and pity. The past had shaped her, yes, but it would not define her. Days blended into weeks. Emily continued her part-time work cleaning offices at dawn, Malik laboring on the farm until sunset. Their life was modest, frugal, but filled with purpose. They measured everything: rent, groceries, tools, repairs, and somehow love. Small joys threaded through their routine: a shared laugh over burnt toast, the first sprout in the vegetable patch, the comforting warmth of a fire on a cold evening. Then came the surveyors, equipment arriving in careful crates. They moved with precision, measuring, probing, testing. Emily followed closely, taking notes, cataloging samples, learning to read the land in ways she had never imagined. Malik showed her the veins of possibility, how to detect the faint glint in soil and rock. They moved cautiously, knowing the value of patience in a world that often demanded haste. The town, once indifferent or scornful, began to notice. Whispers floated through the grocery store aisles. "They're actually doing it," someone said. "The Warren girl and that boy of hers." The words no longer stung, they carried a curious admiration. Emily smiled quietly, aware that nothing had changed except perspective. People tend to respect what they once mocked, and nothing teaches humility like time and perseverance. Evenings became a sacred space. They sat on the porch, listening to coyotes and wind in the trees, counting stars as if each one were a blessing. Emily wrote in her journal, recording not just repairs and discoveries, but thoughts, fears, and hopes. She wrote about love, about courage, about how they had chosen each other and a life that was real, not gilded. One night, the rain came in heavy sheets, drumming against the roof like a heartbeat. Malik held her close as thunder rolled over the hills. "It's strange," he murmured. "How quiet the world becomes when you're building something that matters." Emily nodded, feeling the truth of his words in her bones. The storm outside could rage as it pleased. Inside they had warmth and purpose and each other. Then came a breakthrough. While checking the old pump by the barn, Malik noticed a subtle shift in the ground beneath his feet, a hollow resonance, soft but distinct. Together they dug carefully, uncovering a hidden iron box buried beneath years of soil and leaf litter. Inside, wrapped in waxed cloth, were documents, old leases, maps marking veins of gold and copper beneath their land. Malik's grandfather's name sprawled across one in looping ink. The discovery was intoxicating. They spent days verifying the authenticity of the papers, cross-referencing county records, consulting an old lawyer who remembered the family and their history. The farm had been quietly carrying a vein of gold, abandoned during a century-old dispute. Ownership had passed down faithfully, quietly, and now it rested in their hands. Emily could hardly sleep that night. She lay awake listening to the house breathe, thinking of all the sneers and dismissals, all the nights of uncertainty and hunger. Malik sat nearby, lamp casting a halo over his face, a silent sentinel. They could lose everything chasing this gold, he warned. Emily shook her head. "Or we could gain everything that matters," she whispered. From that moment their lives took on a new rhythm. Careful prospecting, tests, and surveys became sacred acts. Every small fleck of gold was celebrated, every setback handled with patience and persistence. Months passed in slow, deliberate progress, each day layering trust, skill, and vision. By the time the local radio announced a revival of the old farmlands, Emily and Malik were ready. Their hands, once trembling over bills and mundane tasks, were now steady, capable, and confident. The town watched with curiosity, admiration replacing old derision. Even in the midst of toil, Emily's hand often went to her belly, feeling the life that had begun quietly, an emblem of all that had been chosen and all that was yet to come. The farm, the gold, the legacy, they were pieces of a larger puzzle, but the truest treasure was already growing inside her. Spring arrived with a gentle insistence, sunlight stretching long across the fields. Emily cradled her belly as she watched Malik from the porch, the edges of his shirt streaked with dust, hands busy with fence repairs. Each nail he hammered echoed in the rhythm of their life, a quiet testament to patience and persistence. Their farm had grown alive in a way that had nothing to do with gold. Young oaks sprouted along the driveway, the barn gleamed after fresh repairs, and laughter had finally found a permanent home in the air. Then one afternoon, a black sedan rolled slowly down the dirt road. Emily froze. Her parents. Malik noticed her hesitation but said nothing, simply nodding toward the approaching car. Emily's pulse thumped loudly, but she had learned to steady her breath. The sedan stopped, doors opening with deliberate care. Her mother stepped out, simple and human, no pearls, no polished airs, just the woman she once knew. Her father followed, shoulders bent slightly, hands gripping a small, worn blanket. Emily met their eyes at the porch. The same parents who had turned her away years ago now looked uncertain, tentative, hoping perhaps for a chance they had once denied themselves. She remembered the slammed door, the judgment, the rejection, but she also remembered the choice she had made, the life she had built with Malik, the farm that had become more than property, it had become a home, a legacy. Her mother approached first, voice soft, "May we see him?" The words trembled, carrying humility and longing. Emily glanced at Malik, then at the car seat that held Eli, her newborn son. She nodded, stepping aside. The old guard of pride and resentment fell away, replaced by the quiet tension of hope. Inside, the house smelled of warmth, clean laundry, and new beginnings. Emily's mother bent low, eyes softening as Eli cooed in his arms. Her father whispered, "He's perfect." The words were simple, but they carried a weight of unspoken apologies, of lessons learned too late, of love remembered after absence. Emily extended her hand, taking her mother's slowly, deliberately, letting warmth seep through years of frost. Days passed in cautious reconnection. Her parents returned often, unannounced sometimes, bringing small gifts, helping with chores, learning the rhythm of family life anew. Her father, once stern and rigid, now labored alongside Malik, mending fences, hauling timber, the sweat of honest work streaking his once pristine shirts. Her mother baked pies, tended a small garden, and let her laughter return, one slice at a time. The town began to recognize them not as the reckless girl and her boyfriend, but as a couple who had persevered, who had uncovered the hidden wealth beneath the land through determination and love. The radio reported on Turner Mining Company, marveling at the revival of the old farm, the careful, ethical pursuit of the land's hidden resources. Emily only smiled at the recognition, she no longer needed it. Their reward was in the work itself, in the quiet evenings on the porch, in the laughter of Eli and the warmth in Malik's eyes. Gold, as it turned out, was not the point. It had been a catalyst, a hidden force that revealed character, perseverance, and courage. What truly mattered was the family they had become, the home they had built from scratch, and the love that had endured against scorn, hardship, and doubt. Evenings were sacred. They sat under the wide oak at the edge of the property, Eli in Emily's arms, the air filled with the scent of cut grass and warm soil. Malik built a small swing from a sturdy branch, and Emily pushed it gently, listening to the soft creak and Eli's delighted gurgles. Her parents watched from a distance, learning humility, patience, and the language of forgiveness. Neighbors no longer whispered derision. They nodded with respect as they passed, calling Malik Mr. Turner, and acknowledging the remarkable transformation of the farm and its owners. Occasionally rumors of gold persisted, but they were no longer threads of envy, they were awe, a reminder of what could be built with courage and devotion. Months passed. Emily gave birth to Eli on a stormy night, the rain drumming a rhythm against the roof like a heartbeat. Malik drove through mud and darkness, holding her hand, never letting go. When Eli's first cries filled the room, Emily whispered his name, and Malik's tears ran unnoticed down his jawline. That moment crystallized everything they had endured: rejection, struggle, discovery, and triumph, not for wealth alone, but for the family they had chosen to nurture and protect. Life continued in a quiet, steady cadence. The farm thrived, the fields grew lush, and the old house seemed to breathe with them. Emily's parents remained, learning how to be family again, bringing small gestures of care rather than grand declarations. Apologies were embedded in acts, not speeches, and slowly the past's bitterness was replaced with shared labor and gentle laughter. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in bronze and gold, Emily watched Malik return from the mine entrance, shirt streaked with dust, hair catching the sunlight. He waved with that shy half-smile that had begun it all. Emily whispered, "We made it." Eli gurgled in her arms as if he understood. Dinner that night was under the wide oak, the table a patchwork of old wood, mismatched chairs, and new joy. Her father raised his glass, not to gold or wealth but to courage, love, and second chances. Malik nodded in agreement. Emily looked around at the faces once fractured by pride, now bound by something stronger: forgiveness, resilience, and enduring love. The gold beneath their feet gleamed unseen, but it no longer mattered. The true treasure was alive above it: peace, connection, family, and the certainty that love, stubborn, defiant, unyielding, could turn past pain into a legacy. Emily smiled, feeling the weight of every hardship lift, replaced by a richness that no coin could match. Sometimes she thought, love digs deeper than hate ever could. And what they had unearthed through courage, patience, and faith was more valuable than any treasure hidden in the soil.